welcome to my sewing room. We have such a fun show for you today. It's a really interesting technique called Trapunto, and Trapunto by machine, and of course you know it has to be easy or we would not be doing it in Martha's sewing room. The first pillow I have to share with you today, which has the lovely machine Trapunto, is a really beautiful gold. Now, what makes it Trapunto? Can you see how this really elegant design looks kind of puffy? Well, that's because it is puffy. It's stitched all around it, and it's very, very easy to do. Trapunto doesn't have to be just pillows. It can also be a lovely placemat or a wall hanging. This one I absolutely love. It has the white bird with a little bit of gold stitching, wonderful quilting on the background, and the little bird is stitched, is kind of puffy and sitting up, and that's what makes it Trapunto. Trapunto can also look more heirloomy, if you know what I'm saying. This pillow is white on white, with the stippling in the background, machine of course, and the beautiful bow and the very heirloom looking flowers that are puffy. That's what makes it Trapunto. Isn't that a lovely pillow? And that one is very what we call traditional heirloom. The last example I have to share with you is an absolutely beautiful lingerie bag. This one is done in a peach silk dupioni, and the little flap that comes over, you can put your lingerie in or makeup or whatever you want to put in it. And the puffy part, that wonderful, very, very simple design, that is the Trapunto, and then it has the stippling for the background. Now, won't you come along with me over to the technique boards, and I'm going to share with you how easy it is to use this wonderful technique called Trapunto. Let's see just how easy machine Trapunto really is. First of all, I've traced off my design. This is going to be a little Christmas tree ornament. I've traced the triangle around here, and then there's a Christmas tree in the middle. Now, this is a real important thing to use on the first stitching, wash away basting thread. It's this tiny little skinny thread, and actually, when water hits it, it does just wash away. So the first step is going to be to put some high loft batting, or fat batting as I call it, behind this piece of silk dupioni, and I'm going to use the wash away basting thread in the top of my sewing machine, regular thread in the bobbin, and do a teeny zigzag all the way around the Christmas tree, which attaches the fat batting to the Christmas tree. Then I'm going to come in here and cut away, and I've already pre-cut this for you, as you can see, part of it. I'm going to cut away and just leave the batting behind the Christmas tree design. Next, we're going to make a sandwich. Okay, I've already got all the batting cut away. You can see there used to be my fat batting there, which is just a little Christmas tree now. Here's another piece of high loft batting, and then here's the back to the sandwich. So I've made a batting sandwich now. Next step is to come in and with just regular thread this time, straight stitch all the way around the Christmas tree. Then this beautiful stitching here is free motion stippling. That goes through the silk dupioni on the top, the fat batting in the middle, and the silk dupioni on the back. Let me turn it up and show you, and it really just smushes it down like that. You can also do this in a really pretty, this is just an off-white muslin with a star in the middle. Both of those would make really pretty Christmas tree ornaments. Now then, let's come on over to the sewing machine so you can really see exactly how easy it is to do that. I have as my very special guest today, my very dear friend, Louise Baird, whom I consider to be one of the finest sewing machine artists in the world. Louise, welcome to the show, and show everybody how easy it is to do this Trapunto.
Thank you, Martha. It really isn't that difficult to do. And the first sample that I'll show you, you can see that it can be done with a foot on and not just free motion. This is a sample that Martha showed in the beginning of the show. That's a wall hanging, and you can see how the bird really stands out, and that's because the background has been quilted. And this one was quilted with a foot on and just a grid quilting, but the bird really stands up. This is a sample. It's exactly the same pattern, and it was done in the same way, except the background was not smushed down or stitched down. So therefore the bird, although it stands up a little bit, it doesn't stand up as much as it does with the grid quilting. or the stipple quilting, which I'll show you in just a second. Okay, to review a little bit, I first start out with my top fabric, and this is the silk du peony. I've traced my pattern on it, and I've traced the outline, and that's where I'm going to cut later on. That's the size of my ornament. Then you add the wash away basting thread in the needle only and outline your design. Now this design has no inside design lines, so it's just on the outline. I also like to use that narrow zigzag at about a 0.5 width, simply because when I cut away, if I cut my stitching, it doesn't come apart. Okay?
Good idea.
When I finish with that outside stitching, then I trim away and leave the batting just behind the tree. Okay, so on this one, I have the batting just behind the tree, and like Martha said before, I'll make a quilt sandwich with my top fabric, my batting, and the background fabric right side out. Okay, I place it underneath the machine. Now you're probably going to say, what are you doing with all of these things on my sewing board? These are rubber gloves that you can purchase at a drugstore, and I'll tell you why you're using them in just a second, or why I have them in just a second. These are purchased at the quilt store. They're called quilter's gloves. There's little rubberized dots on the edges of them, on the hand of it. These are gardener's gloves, and if I turn it over, you can see they have the same rubberized dots on it. And this is little squares of the fabric that are used in making children's pajamas, the feet on the children's pajamas, to keep them from slipping on the floor. And then this time, the last thing I have is shelf lining. It's a rubber shelf lining. If you cut a couple of squares that are about 2 or 3 inches and place it underneath your fingers, this helps you to grip the fabric so that you can move it underneath the hoop easier. Okay, so to begin with, I'm going to first outline my tree this time, and it's really important to remember that you have to put the same thread in the needle, or regular thread in the needle and in the bobbin. If it's a reversible project like this is a Christmas tree ornament, you really need the same thread, top and bobbin. And the first thing I'm going to do is to, with a straight stitch, just outline my design. And I have the darning foot on the machine. The setting, the tension setting is basically normal, so that you have the same amount of thread in the top, on the top side as the bottom side. And if you have a needle down button, this is a good time to use that needle down button, because whenever you stop, the needle should stay down in your fabric so that you can reposition your hands. Okay, after I finish doing the outline, then I'm just going to run the machine at a moderately fast, steady speed and make like picture puzzle pieces. It's just doodling.
Your feed dogs up or your feed dogs down?
Feed dogs are down.
Okay.
And that's what allows me to move it. The stitching is what will flatten out the background of the fabric, the batting. But you can see that the pieces of rubber help to guide the fabric without pushing down. Remember that if you get really down and push it hard, you're not going to be able to move your fabric, but you also will get really tired. Your shoulders will get really tired really fast.
So that helps you to hold on to it then.
Yes, that's exactly what it does. And that's what the rubber gloves do also. And those gardener's gloves are quilter's gloves. Now it's important, especially if you are in a design that has a very small area to do stipple quilting, is not to paint yourself in a corner. And by that I mean, if as you are going along and I'm stippling and there's an area with just a tiny area left to stitch, you have to find a way out or leave a way out instead of painting. You know, this old adage, when you paint yourself in a corner, you can't get out without crossing over or walking over the paint that you've already put down. And stipple quilting is generally considered stipple quilting when the lines don't cross each other. But you can see how it just flattens itself out.
Do you ever cross your lines when you're doing this, or do you always try not to?
In true stipple quilting, I try not to cross the lines, but especially when somebody is just beginning, one of the things that I'd say, at least until they get comfortable with doing stipple quilting, is just like make little E's or circles or O's. Okay. Now, to finish off this little project, once it would be completely stitched, then I took my rotary blade or rotary cutter with a wavy blade and cut on the lines. And this left a little wavy edge instead of a straight edge, and it made for a little bit of decoration besides the fact that it won't ravel as much.
Huh. And then you just leave it like that. You do all of your stippling, and then you just leave that edge completely unfinished, except for, you know what, isn't that a neat little rotary cutter too? Looks like old-fashioned pinking shears, doesn't it?
Right, it's a lot easier than pinking shears.
A lot easier than old-fashioned pinking shears.
Right.
Louise, thank you so much for that very informative lesson. You see, I told you it was easy. And now then, Louise has a really wonderful home decorating project for you using this very easy Trapunto method. Louise, this is the most beautiful silk dupioni pillow with the wonderful Trapunto bow and then this beautiful stippling. And now that our audience has seen this pillow, I'm going to ask you just to start and show us exactly how it's done.
Okay, thank you, Martha. First of all, with the silk dupioni, since you can't see through to trace it, the first thing I did was to draw it on or trace it onto a stabilizer. This is a wash away stabilizer, and I use a permanent marking pen so that it won't bleed when it's through, when you're through with it. Okay, also, afterwards, once you draw your design, then you need to make your sandwich, or not quite sandwich yet, but you have your batting on the back, your silk dupioni, and your pattern on front. A lot of times when you are working on something, especially this large, things shift around while you're doing the stitching. There are available several temporary spray adhesives now so that you could spray onto the solvay and then it'll flatten it out and it sticks onto the fabric that you're working on. You can also stick the batting on in the same manner. Okay, then you would outline your design. Again, use the the wash away thread in the needle, but also I found that the invisible thread works pretty much just as well. It won't show when you're through with it. Okay, after you have stitched the outside edges, then you want to outline your design. Or rather, after you have stitched the edge, you want to trim it away so that you only have the batting behind the bow. Okay, then you make your sandwich just like we did before and do your stippling. Now, on the first stitching, you only stitched on the outside edges. You can see that I've not stitched on this line yet because that's part of the inside of the design line. So the first thing that I'm going to do is stitch on the inside of the design with regular or machine embroidery thread. Okay, now I forgot to put my little rubber grippers here. That'll help me to hold it. Okay, and I wanted to show you about painting it yourself in a corner like I was talking about earlier. If you are in an area like this, make tiny little puzzle pieces until you get out of your small area. And then you can make the bigger pieces again. Whenever you need to stop, leave your needle down in your fabric and then reposition your hands and start going again. Remember that you don't need to press down really hard because the darning or quilting foot that's on your machine will hold everything down. And I don't know if it's really obvious, but I'm barely holding my fabric. Since the gripper fabric is holding it for me, I can glide it really pretty easily. Okay, now just to finish, you would finish doing all of your stippling. And I made this pillow so that it's just an overlap. It's not a finished pillow. So I folded up 2 inches and then folded up 2 inches again and top stitched at both folds. And then I just take my fabric that I've completed, make sure it's the same size that your backing is, put right sides together and stitch all the way around. And then we can turn it inside out.
And then you have this beautiful pillow right here. You know, it's just so much fun to see how easy these beautiful, beautiful techniques are. And next, I have a wonderful silk ribbon stitch for you. I'm so pleased to have as my guest today Beverly Sheldrick from New Zealand. Beverly is the author of a beautiful book on embroidery entitled Colonial Inspirations. She is also a frequent contributor to both So Beautiful and Fancy Work magazines. Beverly, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Martha. It's good to be here. Now today I've got a little project that's just a little bit different. It looks like an ordinary coat hanger, but it's got a secret, because it has a zip in behind and a pocket inside. So if you're traveling or something like that, you can hide your jewelry or your passport or anything like that. Now the embroidery that I've done on it is really very simple. We have here, this is really just a Japanese ribbon stitch, but I want to show you how to get these lovely little points on the end. I'd also like to show you how I've used a variegated thread here, and it's really just so pretty. So you will see we start simply with one stitch, continue to work our way round with the 5 petals, a French knot in the middle, and then again using this little ribbon stitch to make a few leaves, and also this we have a bud here which you'll see I've used just here and there in a random fashion. One little tip that I would like to give you when you're doing this ribbon stitch is this. When you spike your needle into the ribbon like this, if you put your finger, I like to use my thumbnail, and then take the ribbon through like this, you will see that you can pull that as tight as you like, and you will still not lose that little point. And this is something I developed, Martha, because I've found so often my students, they'd be carefully pulling it through and suddenly it would go and the whole thing, and they'd lost that lovely point. So just by holding the needle there like this, when the thumb is there, you can pull as hard as you like and you don't lose it. Then of course we've just got the little French knot in the middle, and we really all know how to do that, don't we? And take it through. The bud that we have here is simply just 2 of these little stitches, one there, and then put another one beside it and take it through. We will then just take a little bit of floss, put in a straight stitch in the middle like this, and then we're going to do a fly stitch around it, and that's all there is to it. Very, very simple indeed. Now to make the coat hanger, and I know that a lot of people say they have difficulty getting coat hangers over here, so I've developed this very simple way of making it. You can use any coat hanger, any coat hanger you wish. All you do is this. Take a pencil. Now, I want you to notice also that I have put a lightweight fusing on here. Put the hanger like that and draw around it like that, and that then gives you this shape that you can see there. Now, on the other side, what you do is you will see how I've put a seam there. I'm then going to put this zipper here, and just make sure that you put this end, the opening end, on this side, so that when you turn it over like this, then of course it opens this way, unless of course you're left-handed. Now the next step after that is very, very simple. We're going to put this here. We're going to this is the pocket section, and you will see I have pinned it there on top of the zip. So you will then turn it over, zigzag it along there, then fold this down like that, and do the same thing across there, like that, just zigzagging it along there. You will then stitch up here and up here, and I find it's quite a good idea if you turn it like that. It makes it easy for you to just stitch up along there, and then all you have to do is put the two together. Oh, and just one other small thing, you'll notice I've folded this down like that. So if you turn it over to the right side, and of course you'll notice I've already done the embroidery, you can then just stitch it up there, up to here, leave the hole, down here, around here, pop some lace on the bottom like this, turn it through, and all you need to do then is just put your coat hanger in, and you've got something very beautiful to do the trick.
You know, Beverly, that is very beautiful, and since I travel a lot, I really do appreciate the one that you made for me. I intend to use it a lot. There are a lot of times when you'd like to just hide something and put your jacket over it. I really do think that's a good way to kind of keep a treasure hidden.
Well, a friend of mine had her jewellery stolen when she was staying in a motel. She had it just beside her bed, you know how so often we do. And the burglar came in and he just took her rings, and she lost the lot just like that while she was sleeping. So this is how I came to come up with this idea.
Well, it's a wonderful,
slip it in.
Wonderful idea. Thank you so much. It's very beautiful also. Now won't you come along with me to my attic? I just could not wait to bring this dress to my attic to share with all of you out there in my viewing audience. It is just beautiful. It obviously, to me anyway, I think it was a wedding dress. First of all, the top of it, this wonderful high neck, was done on silk organza. Now, by the time I bought this dress in Massachusetts, it had already had the netting underlining. My guess would be that silk organza doesn't hold up too well over the years. Now, as we come down the front, beautiful, beautiful Swiss motifs have been stitched on. Now, this is a silk file, so it's a lot heavier fabric. It has the pigeon breast front. Let me kind of hold it up. It has a little sash that comes underneath there out of velvet. Now, let's just take you on down the front of this skirt. Absolutely beautiful cotton motifs which have been stitched on this beautiful silk dress, and you can see I have some stains on it, but I'm not going to worry about it at all because silk sometimes does not hold up under a lot of cleaning, so I'm just going to leave those stains right where they are. Now, if it had been cotton, I probably would have tried a little harder to get the stains out. I just have to turn this dress around to show you the back. Absolutely beautiful train. Isn't that pretty? Can't you just see a bride in this beautiful off-white dress? And I do believe it was off-white. I don't believe it was ever stark white. You see the motifs come up at the top, and even where the little hooks and eyes are, the little motifs go over, the little leaves go over. I just think it's beautiful. Now, there's another technique which I think is really pretty too. It has been gathered over a heavy cording. It almost looks like an upholstery cord of some kind, and then whipped by hand. Come on down, you can see that same treatment on the skirt that goes all the way around. Isn't that interesting? Just a heavy cord. The fabric has been folded over, gathered up, and whipped by hand. Another treatment of the cording is down here. And then let me just pull that pretty train out there so you can see the pretty train. And it has four, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, well, I think 5 tucks on the bottom. I can just see how beautiful a bride would have looked in that dress in 1900, and in my opinion, a bride would be just as beautiful in this dress today. Thank you so much for joining me in my sewing room. I hope you've had fun, and I would especially like to invite you to come back next time.